Here we go, yet another day and more orange and blue today for October 11th, 2022. It is Cecil Lammey, it is Andrew Mason, and it is Denver Broncos time. As Mace, we were out there to listen to Nathaniel Hackett and some players today, but you certainly heard some stuff from Nathaniel Hackett that I liked to hear. Now, it's got to result in better play, better coaching, all these sorts of things. But when he's talking about get back on track plays, there's too many GOBT plays. They need to GTB, get to business, and first downs and first quarters and faster starts. So hearing Hackett acknowledge that, he knows his flaws. That's not the problem. But at least it was a positive for Nathaniel Hackett, even though when I tweeted it out, Mace, all these fans are just chirping Hackett. It's like, I liked it. I understand why fans are still upset.
Well, I mean, yeah, the GBOT, get back on track. The first step is identifying the problem. The second is doing something about it. Right. I mean, they've identified the problem, but sometimes when you look at this and dive down to it, what is causing them to get off track? Is it penalties? Is it timing on the offensive line? And that's why I actually asked Dalton Reisner about it, because a lot of the stuff is some protection breakdowns, some pre-snap breakdowns. Hackett even said it's not like they'd rather have an incomplete pass because at least that leaves him in 2nd and 10. The problem is a handoff where you've got somebody soaring through protection. All of a sudden you have a 2-yard loss. Running backs met in the backfield. That's happened way too often. And so it does come down to the guys up front, and that's where and we'll see if they can fix that now without Garrett Bowles. I mean, I think identifying the problem is one thing. Can they solve it? I'm not sure. Not to the degree where we're going to talk about this offense being a great offense the rest of the way. I think you're just asking us to try to become an average offense the rest of the way.
Right. Getting to average would be a win for this team. And right now, Russell Wilson's going to play. That confirmed today. So any fantasies about, going in a different direction, that's not going to happen. Wilson's going to play. And the rest supposedly and hopefully did him some good.
Yeah, and the rest in the platelet-rich plasma injection. I mean, he was out there today. Look, today would have been, if you wanted to give him an opportunity to rest, today would have been a perfect opportunity, right? You don't practice again until Thursday. This is kind of the bonus practice that you get when you have that mini bye that comes after Thursday night. And he was out there, so I'd say that was a pretty good sign for him in terms of where he stands. And some of it may also be, Cecil, that he knows he's going to have to push through it. That it is going to be a pain tolerance and a pain and a discomfort management thing. So might as well test that. If you can't make it worse, if you can't exacerbate it by being out there in practice, you might as well just test that and kind of get used to what your reality is going to be as long as you're dealing with this injury.
Yeah, and it's week 6. So here we go for the rest of the season. Andrew, our friend here on Facebook, says, hey, guys, how do they fix this line? Any ideas? I think it's like what you said about the offense. You're not going to have a great offense, just an average one. That's what you're working for. You're not going to have a great offensive line, Mace. I'm not exactly sure what the answer would be other than Billy Turner plays better, and then, Tom Compton is healthy. Like, maybe that's part of the answer, to be average.
Yeah, and hopefully get Quinn Miners back from the hamstring injury. I think what Quinn can do is, I think when we talk about some of these issues on first down, when you have a free linebacker coming in and blowing up a play that's leading to a 2 or 3 yard loss on the ground, that's where I think Quinn Miners is going to help out, because Graham Glasgow pass protection has been okay. Run blocking, it's been a struggle for him. I think, and Miners showed in training camp that was the best aspect of what he was doing. So I think getting Quinn back is going to help this offense in terms of what it needs to do, what its identity is going to be. It's kind of weird to say this with Javonte Williams not in the picture anymore for the rest of this season, but the identity, if this team is going to be successful, it's going to be a very meat and potatoes type of thing. It's going to be ground game. It's going to be defense. Effective ground game is a good complement to what you're trying to do defensively. You grind out some drives, you keep them fresh, so you don't run into a situation like you ran into last Thursday, where the defense was gassed because you had to keep going back out there time and time again.
Yeah, don't blame the defense for anything. When they're getting gassed, that's going to happen to the greatest defenses, and you've seen it with the Denver Broncos at running back. I think you're getting asked via Twitter. I know I'm getting asked for fantasy purposes. Like, is it going to be Latavius Murray? I don't know. It's going to be 3. And if
Yeah.
Gordon hangs on to the ball, then he'll be part of it. But I think Murray can play a larger part. He's part of a committee. He's not the lead guy. He's not the answer. But if you want, 50, 60 yards and a touchdown, some receptions, no fumbling, Latavius Murray can be part of your answer.
Yeah, you're trying to recreate in the aggregate at this point. 8, 8 carries for Mike Boone, 9 carries for Melvin Gordon, 9 carries for Latavius Murray. Maybe more for one if you have a hot hand. Like if Melvin Gordon is on fire one night, you give him the rock. If Mike Boone is feeling it, you give a little bit more to Mike Boone. Did Latavius Murray? This is going to be a fantasy nightmare for people. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think, unless the landscape significantly changes, I don't think we're looking at anything the rest of the way where we're talking about a Broncos running back. Yeah, you want to start him in fantasy. I think that's floating away right now.
Unless they could get Christian McCaffrey, which is, it's fun to think about, Mace, but you wrote about it at denverfan.com. I think we're going to talk about it on the PM edition tonight from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the Fan. Make sure to stay tuned for that. But with the trade deadline looming, I wouldn't expect the Broncos to be, when CBS writes, and God bless, I don't know who it was. And it doesn't mean that if I know them, they're the greatest thing ever. But like, okay, somebody from CBS wrote that the Broncos would be like 3rd. And yeah, I've heard the Bills are interested, but that's legitimate interest. When people put together a list and say the Broncos, I think it's just doing math, and there's a lot of that in the media. Again, CBS guy could be the greatest ever, but when he puts the Broncos on the list, I'm just like, what are they going to trade him? Jerry Jeudy, which they don't want?
The CBS listicles, and with all respect to CBS, I've worked there in my past. They make for interesting discussion topics,
yes,
on radio and for a show like this, but they don't often have a connection to reality. I mean, the reality is Broncos only have 5 draft picks for next year. Carolina, what we've seen in some reports is Carolina is willing to eat a lot of the salary to get a better deal, which to me screams Buffalo Bills, because they have 1.7 million of cap space. They're going to have to do some gymnastics to get any aspect of that contract in. But Buffalo is in very much go for it mode right now. So could you get a 2nd round pick maybe from Buffalo if Carolina is eating most of the contract, at least for this year? Yes, you might be able to do that. And the Broncos aren't going to do that. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for the Broncos to frankly trade anything more than a 6th round pick for Christian McCaffrey, because he's productive when he's out there. More often than not, the last 3 years, he's not out there. This is, with all respect to the people who are saying, hey, the Broncos should go get Christian McCaffrey. A, it doesn't work with the reality of what the Broncos tradable assets are. And B, you're trading for a guy who's more likely to be hurt than healthy. It's the shiny object, right? Oh, big, bright, shiny object.
It's a hometown hero.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same. They should get Philip Lindsay. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and Steve Johnson has a great comment there. Would McCaffrey be worth the capital to get him? Shouldn't they address the O-line first? If you were trying to bring in reinforcements, you would do it on the offensive line before you did it at running back. But I would also say that at offensive line, this is very much going to be, as John Fox would say, a situation where no one's coming to save us. The answers are going to have to come from within. It's going to have to come from Billy Turner, hopefully staying healthy. It's going to have to come from Tom Compton when he's out there, and what happens at left tackle. It could be Calvin Anderson. Don't close the door on Cam Fleming possibly working at left tackle as well as part of the shuffling goes. But the answers are going to come from people who are already on this roster, already in that building. remember 7 years ago they almost traded for Joe Thomas. A deal like that's not coming potentially. A potential deal like that is not coming here. It's going to be the improvement's going to have to come from the guys who are on hand.
You didn't bite on my Jerry Jeudy comment. Like I just threw it out there. I just see what kind of rise I could get out of Andrew Mason. So not much of one. Because Jeremy also mentions Bradley Chubb. I think there's a conversation to be had about Bradley Chubb getting a contract extension at the bye. Like that's a conversation I'll have. As far as trading Bradley Chubb, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. As far as trading Jerry Jeudy, who would want him?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know that anyone would at this point because every team, almost every team has young receivers that they like. There's no shortage of young receivers. We've had two draft classes since Jerry Jeudy. So he's kind of yesterday's news until he proves he can be a top flight receiver when it matters, and that hasn't happened yet. So and as for Chubb, could they extend him? I could see an extension happening. I don't know if that's the wisest course of action. Because that's another player who has had a lot of injury concerns over the years. I look at Bradley Chubb, and he's playing really well. And the thought to me remains, all right, tag him for next year. Not a long-term deal. Tag him, see what happens. And this is if he has a great season this year. And the other thing that comes into play is you're going to see a lot of Baron Browning, and you're even going to see flashes of Nick Bonito, and you're going to have Randy Gregory coming back. If Browning plays the way he did last Thursday, he's going to demand a place in the lineup, not like a vocal demand, but his play will demand a place in the lineup, a more prominent role
Very much
on
so.
the Broncos team. And then if Bonito keeps showing flashes and you have Gregory under contract, I mean, that's where I start thinking tag and trade if you get to the offseason. And Bradley Chubb is still a valuable asset, and maybe that allows you to start rebuilding some other areas because you know what? I mean, we're talking about this offensive line. They're going to have some work to do on this O-line going in next offseason. I think we can already see that coming down the pike. The problem is they don't have the draft assets to really do anything to fix that offensive line next year unless they make a trade to get some picks that are in the first couple of rounds.
Right. And that's the problem that you see. Usually, Mace, when you fast forward this stuff, when you examine the league like you and I do, you can see stuff ahead of time.
Yeah.
Or you can at least see their plan, right? Mm-hmm. Like their plan was, Caden Stearns when Kareem Jackson is done. Well, Kareem Jackson's not done yet. So Caden Stearns is doing his thing while Justin Simmons was out, and Simmons is a fine foundational piece for the Broncos. Years ago, when they drafted Cody Latimer, I was like, oh, that's the plan when DT's done. Cody didn't work out. DT got the money. So, like, you can tell what their plan is. I have no idea what their plan is up front because the assets just aren't there. And a guy that you thought maybe could be even a left tackle of the future, as much as people don't want to say that about Garrett Bowles, Calvin Anderson didn't work out, on the right side. So offensive line, it's always about the trenches, and the Broncos are pretty shady there.
Yeah, and you start looking at what are potential solutions as you get into free agency and the draft. Mostly free agency. If you're trying to fill some holes, we may be talking about yet another right tackle next year. I mean, the right tackle revolving door, the original sin of which started when they moved Big O, Orlando Franklin, away from that spot and moved him inside. And ever since then, it's just been one guy after another. It makes the Broncos carousel look quaint by comparison. So, this is not a problem that I think is going to go away overnight. And the other thing is, despite Garrett Bowles' injury, I expect Garrett Bowles back at left tackle next year. And a big part of the reason why is where's the better option out there?
You don't have a better option. Yeah. And when we have Klongya 7 saying like, you better hit a home run in free agency, that's fine. You don't have money. So you don't have money and you don't have picks. And here's why winning this year was paramount, Mace. Winning this year was paramount because it's the bat signal. We give him the signal, right? 89 Batman. Like the signal was Russ is here. This team is legit. They're serious about winning. If you win 10, 11, 12 games this year, that's the bat signal to those free agents who are like, you know what? I wanted to win a championship.
Yeah.
And like Denver and, Russell Wilson. If you don't win, if it's a 6-win year, 7-win year, you're not going to get those free agents to take that discount. You're not going to get Emmanuel Sanders lied to Andy Reid. He said he had bubble guts. He was meeting with the Chiefs. And I know Sanders at the time didn't have a 1,000-yard season, didn't even have a 100-yard game in 4 years with the Steelers. But he lied to Andy Reid to his face so he could go back to the hotel, not actually come back to the Chiefs facility, but leave and fly to Denver because Peyton Manning was calling.
Yeah.
That's what you don't have because you're not winning this year. So you don't have money, you don't have picks, and you don't have wins.
Yeah.
It's rough.
The bat signal comes from Kansas City. The bat signal comes from Western New York right now in the AFC, right? Comes from the places that have Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. The bat, I mean, it's nuts to think about this, but the bat signal may come from a place like Cincinnati if they make another deep playoff run. I know they had a tough loss on Sunday, but I think the Bengals are going to be fine long term over the course of the year. Put it this way, I'm much more confident in the Bengals at 2-3 than the Broncos at 2-3.
Right.
And I don't think it's particularly close right now. The Ravens with Lamar Jackson, if they can finally do the right thing and give him the money that he deserves, they'll put out the bat signal, right? But the Broncos, if Russell Wilson is sitting there, let's assume some improvement. But if they're sitting there at the end of the season, Russell Wilson has an 87 passer rating which puts him decidedly mid-tier, maybe even lower mid-tier among quarterbacks. And oh, by the way, the offense was no more than average over the course of the season. They're not going to attract anybody. No one's going to take a cut rate to come here. No one. And part of the equation for success when you're going to be paying a quarterback cap figures of 50 million plus in future years is that guys do toward the end of their career, especially, they do take pay cuts. They're still valuable players, but they take a lower pay because they want to go get a ring. I mean, look at Kansas City. I mean, they're MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, they're playing for pennies on the dollar, right? Are they great receivers? No, but they're good receivers. And they're playing for pennies on the dollar because they know that Mahomes can get them where they want to go.
And they could have got more from a team, let's say like Chicago, right? They're gonna or Jacksonville, like how Jacksonville overpaid for Christian Kirk. Like you're just gonna do that.
Yeah.
But there's guys that are ring chasing. In Denver, you don't know what you're chasing yet. We'll see.
Chasing rings. Right now, you're just trying to chase a dub. You're chasing 500. I mean, if you lose,
you're chasing mediocrity,
right? You lose this game, and you're 2-4, and I think the Broncos can get back to 500. But I think if they lose this game next Monday, this turns into the type of season where the Broncos basically end up skulking around 500 most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Where okay, I could see them if they lose on Monday. I could see them beating the Jets and then beating the Jaguars right after that. But then you come out of the bye, you go to Tennessee, and Derrick Henry runs it down your throat. And then you play the Raiders, coin flip the game. Then you go beat Carolina. Yay. Then you have to go to Baltimore. And I mean, it starts to potentially take on the air of that frustrating kind of year where you end up in 8-9 or 9-8, right? And we knew somebody was going to end up in the AFC West like that. I think what we didn't know is that the Raiders are going to be 1-4 at this point.
Right.
But anyway, it's the season is not over. But the reality is that it's trending toward a very frustrating type of campaign if they don't get that dub in LA on Monday night. I mean, I never thought that we'd be talking about this game in such a magnitude here in the middle of October, but we are. We really are.
We're here. Yeah, we're here. And speaking of Monday night, looks like Justin Simmons is going to be back. We don't know about Dulcich. Okay, so we'll continue to watch that. But Justin Simmons' return with Keenan Allen's return coupled at the same time, that's an assumption for Keenan Allen, but it should happen.
Yeah.
That should be a boost for this Broncos team. And this defense is already playing lights out. Nothing's on the defense. I don't care what they do at the end of the game when they're wore out. This defense is giving it their all, and they're damn good.
They're damn good, and the pass rush is damn good. That's a key thing because in the rush and cover equation, those guys up front are going to set up some opportunities for guys on the back end to make plays on the ball because there are going to be some errant throws. That's you look at the fact they didn't have Randy Gregory last week and they still had an effective pass rush. Colts tackles are shaky. Yeah. You know what? The Chargers tackles are shaky right now too. So I could see Chubb, Browning, Benito as a collective all having the same type of impactful game that they had against the Colts. The difference being that Justin Herbert will get away. So on the back end, you're going to have to be mindful of him taking off and running. I mean, you don't have to wind the clock very far back to the Rose Bowl on January 1st of 2020 when Justin Herbert was struggling to throw the ball for Oregon against Wisconsin. He ends up being the Rose Bowl MVP mainly because of his legs. And that's the kind of thing you have to watch out for. You mentioned Simmons coming back. That's going to be helpful. But at the same time, you're losing Ronald Darby. Damari Mathis was over on the side rehab field today. Michael Ojemudia was out there at practice. He had the same injury as Jonas Griffith. He had more time to recover. Ojemudia is going to be good to go. But whether it's Ojemudia or Mathis, and I think you have to say either or right now because Mathis was over on that side rehab field today. One of them, there's a good chance that he's going to be on Keenan Allen if you put PS2 on Mike Williams. And whoever handles that responsibility is going to need some help over the top. And that's why you're thankful to have Justin Simmons back.
And you're facing a Chargers team that's hitting their stride. Big game for Mike Williams. Keenan Allen's always a threat. Austin Eckler's going nuts. The best Colorado high school back was Austin Eckler. I'm going to make the Philip Lindsay fans mad. And Christian, we love Christian, but man, if you're not healthy, this doesn't matter. Right. Austin Eckler
can't make that club in the tub, right? Austin Eckler. I mean,
Eckler's doing it, man.
Yeah, he's doing it. He's special. I mean, really, the threat to the Chargers is Brandon Staley and his game management, right? That's the threat. That's
the threat within.
Yes, I mean it's you gotta vanquish the enemy within before you start trying to focus on your opponent. I mean, really, the rogue element in this game is Brandon Staley, his aggression on fourth downs, Nathaniel Hackett, his aggressive tactics as well, and so who's going to come out on top? Both of these guys are making game management decisions that I think is fair to question. That's why it's probably going to be a wild game on Monday night. I mean, everyone's going to be sitting there saying, "What are you doing there? What are you doing there?" But that's just the way that Staley and Hackett that's the way they operate. So bring it on. It's what you're hoping is that Staley is the one that makes the miscues, and certainly the Chargers could be sitting there at 2-3 right now. They're lucky they're not 2-3, Cecil.
Oh, the Chargers choke regularly. So if you're the Broncos, hope that Staley messes up and hope that the Chargers choke. We will be breaking this thing down even more so tonight, 6 p.m. on The Fan. So make sure to stay tuned. It's denverfan.com PM edition. It'll be me and Mace talking about, what's going on at denverfan.com. So there you go. Mace, we got to get out of here for now. But right. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you in the air in just a little bit, 6 p.m. We'll see you tomorrow out of Dove Valley, and we'll see you back here at 3:30 for Orange and Blue today. Stay frosty.